If any of you are sending like an important text or reading some important news, maybe you can put your cell phones away and they can sit back and have a miserable time together. Your lips are chapped?
Yes, they are.
You have issues?
Lip issues, yeah, doctor, my lip off because he used them.
So, you have any questions, any comments, anything you guys want to talk about? I didn't prep for today's class. Why are you laughing? What do you mean? I always prep. I've been prepping for 30 years.
Have you ever fought someone?
Fought?
Yes.
Maybe you after class.
How would you?
Given that I have your grade in my hand, and I basically hold hostage your future, yeah, it'd be an interesting fight. So, anyone else?
Good morning.
Well, it depends how you think about it. I'm thankful to be alive sometimes. Not so thankful how I spend my time while alive. That causes misery. So a little bit of both. How is yours? Good. Yes.
Okay, I have a question.
You know, they had mentioned that Nelson Mandela never enjoys being asked that question because it makes him think about his family, his country, himself, old age, sickness, and death, and the West. So he would just go home and cry. Yeah. Janai. Yes.
Which greater, love or respect?
Neither. You've jumped too many steps.
Always.
That's not good. You know, it's, I can tell from your question you're not a carpenter. Are you a good cook? Jesus Christ. What are you good at or in?
I'm good at.
Lip balm? All right, let's.
Yeah.
So, the way you build a house, and I'm guessing, is that you have a plot of land somewhere, you've saved some money, and now with this money that you've saved, there's this urge of building a house. And you go to Home Depot and you get some shingles for the roof. And then you say, well, what the hell am I going to put the shingles on? Nothing, really. You put in a garage somewhere, you create this form. You get some rebars, you make sure that the soil is compacted, it's hard, all that. And you give it some shape, then you pour the concrete. And you let it sit for about 48 hours or so. And then you put some pressure-treated wood around the edges. And then you go with the walls. Top plate, you know, depending on whether you want a 1-story, 2-story, 5-story. You get some wires through for, you know, electricity and all. Some insulation, drywall. Then you make the roof, and then you put the shingles on, step by step. Love is like putting the shingles on. Respect is putting more shingles on the shingles. So, it's best not to love and not to respect, but to engage in rigorous examination. I mean, how old are you? Let's just say you're 37. May I be honest? You and I are no longer young. The only difference is, I crack, you don't. My skin color and all that. You're a woman, so you certainly have expiration date in this culture. That as you age, you lose your attractiveness to some extent. You no longer become an object of other people's desire. And that takes your value away. You become more irrelevant, more insignificant. That makes you sad, lonely, depressed. And then, of course, you'll be on Prozac. And just in case you have kids, they'll never come to visit you because that's not the way this place works. Any questions so far?
No.
Oh, yes, of course. That's okay. You can love someone because they're very physically attractive. And you look at them and something happens to your brain chemistry. And physical attraction is very much like, when you go to the ocean, the waves come forth, you have some foam, bubbles, and they look really, really nice, but after a few minutes, they all pop. And that's the difficulty with physical attraction. It is true that when you hang out with someone who's physically attractive, emotions are going to be created. You spend time with them, feelings are generated, feelings morph into emotions. Now you have mood swings once in a while. And when things are disturbed a little, the relationship is not going too well, thought process begins to take place, and they begin to think how you can fix some of the dilemmas in the relationship. So that's only just being attracted to someone on a physical level. That'll create all these other disasters, feelings you don't really understand. God forbid if you develop emotions, okay? And then the thoughts. Because you got to fix, no relationship is ever simple. They're all complicated. And if you had the proper tools, you would have never gone out with someone simply because they're physically attractive. And then eventually they grow on you like cancer. Okay? So that's one level of attraction where love is generated or created. The next is someone is not as attractive, but you sit with them and they speak, and all of a sudden they kind of begin to create some emotions about you. And if the emotions happen to be positive, we call it positive pleasure. And we're all a junkie. We all run after things that give us pleasure. Now you may take this chap home to your mom, and your mom may say to you, Janai, this guy is like ugly as a truck. And then you say, Mom, when he opens his mouth and he talks, I'm all tingled up. And one of the nice things about whatever kind of love that lives inside you is, tragically for all of us, there comes a point in this emotional relationship where it's no longer enough to sit back and look at the object of affection. It's like you really want a cup of coffee. It's not enough for me to just show it to you. There comes a point where you just walk to the table, stretch out your arm, grab this and put it to your lip. Your lip gloss will fade, but you will have a nice sip of coffee. So the tragedy of this particular emotion is that eventually you want to touch it and taste it physically. Okay. Now emotions, because they have some depth and they have some mystery, you want to figure out why this person has the power to arouse so much emotions about you, it makes you a bit more curious. So you're dangled for a while. But let's say someone really doesn't generate that much emotions. You meet them at a party somewhere, and they say to you, weren't you in my philosophy class? And you say, yes, some 50 years ago. And the two of you begin to chit-chat. And all of a sudden you realize, yes, he is as ugly as Snoop Dogg. Emotionally, he doesn't inspire anything. But intellectually, man, the way he thinks, his perspectives about things, you know. And out of those ideas that he shares with you, emotions are created. And you begin to kind of doubt yourself. You know, this guy is as ugly as a dog, i.e. Snoop Dogg. And yet, for some strange reason, I find myself attracted to him. Why? You try to figure out this mystery, but you can't figure that it's possible. عشق الطلاب و اسرار خداست. That love all of a sudden knocks on the door and says, here I am, without any warning. Okay. Now, I'm sure that you and I have both gone out with people who are intellectually mature, but they just don't have common sense. They don't know how to wash dishes, how to take out garbage, how to vacuum, how to sit quietly for a few minutes and have a nice conversation. And after a while you realize, yeah, you know, they're like a Jesus Christ, but when it comes to relationship, they suck. Then there is this other kind of love that's generated. Let me go back to emotions a little bit and talk about trauma very, very quickly, which what we call falling in love or liking someone because of their psychology. And psychology has to do, if for those of you in this class who may one day take a psychology class, it just means your soul. If you don't believe in a soul, just something that is deep-rooted inside you, right? Imagine that I'm very unhealthy, and though you, at this age, would like to be with a healthy human being, you realize that, well, your past is a little checkered. Your father this, your mom that, your ex is this. So the idea of you hanging out with a healthy sort of a fellow, even though intellectually it sounds really good, practically it's impossible. You like people who are broken. So you gravitate towards me, a dysfunctional ass. And you say, hey, Amir, how you doing? Fine. How's your dad? He his guts. Ah, now you wake up. I like him, right? And being the good cook that you are, you want to cook me, fix me. And you realize I'm addicted to about 20, 30 years of history. And as much as I want to get fixed up, it's nearly impossible. And something that sounded so interesting and felt so interesting for you now becomes a source of exhaustion. You look yourself in the mirror like Elizabeth Taylor and you say, the hell? How could you do this to yourself? Again, it's your 10th time. When are you going to grow up? And then there is this other shade of love that it's okay. That they're reserved for people like Malcolm X or Mahatma Gandhi or Jesus Christ or Socrates or Plato. They don't care about your body. They don't care about how your relationship is with your father. They don't really care about your husbands or wives. They tap into this place inside you and you don't know what it is. It's a mystery to everyone. And you like the fact that you grow wings now. And you don't think about the tables and chairs of your life, but you think about justice. You think about fairness. You think about what it means to be human and what you need to do to live the best life you possibly can before death comes your way. You know. Now, what all these different kinds of love have in common is the following. First, whenever you're in a relationship, love relationship, people don't love equally. One person always loves a bit more And the person who loves a bit more has a bit more power. And that power gives them the option of staying or leaving without getting too much hurt. Now, the person who doesn't have power in the relationship or loves more, they have no choice but forever remain passive, to become a subject, to be trampled on. And there's a reason. You love, and one of the functions of love is you want to please. You want to make sure your companion is happy. Okay? Now, if you go back to what we talked about, the physical, the emotional, the psychological, the intellectual, and the spiritual, what you will encounter is the following. You can bed Malcolm X, and you guys can have sex for 6 hours. But after that, he demands that you think about things the right way. He wants your soul to come to life. And just in case you won't be able to, he'll walk out. But Snoop Dogg will not demand much from you. The only thing he'll ask is, just sit next to me and let's smoke. So it's by far better and easier and more beneficial to hang out with Snoop Dogg's than Malcolm X's. Because people like Malcolm X or Socrates or Plato, they demand too much. Their love is relatively unreachable. It's too much. Okay. Now, the person who has less power in the relationship has more fear of the person they're with. And that fear generates a good amount of respect. Take out the garbage. Yes, honey. You want Zachary's? No, let's go to Barney's. Okay. And even though you know at times you are right, but because you don't have very much power in the relationship, you will say, yes, I'm wrong and you are right. So remember, with love comes inequality of power, and the person who has the least amount of power fears and respects more. Now, do you have any questions before we continue with this ridiculous infantile rambling? Excellent. Yeah, I see your hand. Yeah.
How do you define that? Like, I mean, I know you like went on a whole. Like,
Oh, here we go. Whole
but it's
tangent.
like, what is the difference between like that and like how do you like know the difference? Or like, what feeling is like makes that up? I don't know. I'm just,
What was the question?
what's love?
Oh, yes. چون قلم در می نوشتن می شتافت چون به عشق آمد قلم از خود شکافت. It's a passage from one of my good friends, Rumi. Have you heard of him? He was a porn star around the 13th century or so. He was a religious man, a mystic, a philosopher in the Persian world. He was a chap very much like me. He had read a lot of books. He had a job like mine. He would go to his lecture hall and talk for hours. And he had a lot of students coming his way. In fact, some of the stories suggest that the whole town was basically a student, about 600 people. And people also came from afar to sit at his feet and listen to him talk. His father was also a lecturer. And so he was his eldest son. He had 2 wives. I mean, the first one died and then he married. Maybe he killed her. I don't know. And one day as he's giving a talk, an old man, about maybe 15, 20 years older than he was, walks in and says, "You're stupid." And Rumi looks at this old man and says, "I love you." And follows him for the morning, a couple of years. And then the guy dies or goes away and Rumi gets sad and he writes this book called the Divan-e-Shams Tabrizi. It's about almost 1,000 poems, all dedicated to his teacher. He loved them. Then after a while, he gained some autonomy, independence. He was able to think for himself. The sadness and the sorrow of losing his teacher had made him a very solitary man. And in solitude, you can't form attachment to anyone. It's just you and you alone. So he wrote this 6-volume book called the Masnavi, or the couplets. And in the first book, I don't know what line it is, but it says that I was just writing away. You know how you're writing your essay and you're like in the zone and things are just flowing through you? And then the last chapter that you have to write on is love. And all of a sudden, in as much as you try, the pen doesn't write. I don't know if you ever rode a donkey. We used to in India and Iran. Donkeys are very strange animals in the sense that if they don't like you, they'll just kick you. And they'll go near the edge of the cliff so that they can scare the hell out of you so you can get off of them. But if they really, really don't like you, they just won't move at all. And so what Rumi says in this particular passage is, I can write about science, I can write about history, I can write about psychology, but the moment I get to love, my pen stops, the ink dries, my hand freezes, I can't write. So when he says, Ishq, Ussullah wa Asrar Khudas, it's a mystery that you can't understand ever. But I'm not Rumi and neither are you. I'm not a good student and neither are you. I'm not a teacher, neither are you. So let's try our best to define what love is. There is a thing called instant attraction. I look at you and I don't know why. I just want to be around you all the time. And after like 2, 3, 4, 5 days, I will text you and say, Rosie, I love you. But this particular love has no understanding in it. It doesn't know who you are, what you are. It doesn't care about understanding your passions, your past. All I know is that I want to be around you. And it's very intense. That's the thing you need to understand about, regardless of the shade of love you're experiencing, they all have similar components. All of them do. The only difference is that if you love someone physically versus loving someone, say, intellectually, when you love someone physically, it lasts about 2 months. Loving someone intellectually will last about 2 years. The shelf life is just longer. Okay? So if you look at Gilgamesh, for example, ancient story about 5,000 years ago, the only reason why people talk about Gilgamesh, like Gilgamesh, love Gilgamesh, is because there is something about him that time can't touch. About 10,000 years have passed and we still love him. There is a mystery inside him. It's unreachable by the human mind, by the human hands. Okay? So, the Greeks have about 8 different shades of love. I won't tell them all to you, but the first is ludos, lust. You covet something, and if it's attractive enough, it tempts you. And if you have the resources, you walk towards it. Imagine I like you. I lust after you. But I don't have the resources, i.e., I'm shy, I'm reserved, so that lust will eventually go away. Are you listening? Ludos. Some people are just lusty. They can't commit to anything. They just like open relationships in the sense that you lust after this, you pursue it for a few days, and then the lust goes away, you chase after another lust. You also have this other kind of love which is reserved for your family. You have this other love that's reserved for friendships. But it's a very, very specific kind of a friendship. We're not talking about you being friends with an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old. I'm not talking about a friendship that revolves around gossip. You become friends with a Mahatma Gandhi, with a Malcolm X. Now, this friendship is going to be profoundly unequal. It's what they call philo. Unequal. That friendship has one function. Malcolm is there to teach you things, not to listen to you talk, not to care about your history. Your history is irrelevant. And there is another shade of love we call eros. It's physical. I don't care about your past. It follows a little bit after lust. And all I want to do, after having gotten to know you just a little bit on a very, very superficial level, I jump on you like a dog. And once I am bored with the sex, I move on. But then there is this last kind of love that they talk about, which is agape. So, anyone else? I get bored very quickly, so I just move on. Olivia? Yes?
What if you like this person?
Then you gotta touch him or her. The point I'm trying to make is this. Olivia, right? How old are you? Is this about you? Can you walk away from it? What if I give you an A?
No.
What if you just sign up for all of my late start classes and I give you A's in all of them?
Or does that feel extended?
Huh?
Or does that feel extended?
Well, not for you, just for her. How old is this person? Oh, Jesus Christ, no. Have you ever leased a car? See, when you buy a car, you're stuck with it. When you lease the car, there's an option that you rent it and then you can return it whenever with a penalty. Why don't you just lease the relationship?
Or not.
Well, you said you like him, and if you're not careful, you'll be in one. I'm just trying to warn you.
He also likes me.
That's even worse. If he likes you and you like him, it means there are more baits out there, there are more hooks out there, and before you know it, you're all bloodied. Allahu Akbar. Olivia, look. What kind of a grade do you want in this class? You have such high self-esteem. Let's say you want an A. And that's a relationship to an idea, a concept, an A. So let me tell you what sort of resources you need to get an A in this class. And let's just say I'm not easy, okay? That you have to really work for the A. Well, you have to spend time listening to the audios and taking notes. You have to spend time listening to the video, watching and taking notes. You have to come to class on a regular basis. Then you have to sit back and look at the notes and reflect on them deeply. And then every weekend, Sunday, sit down and write a really, really good question. And then when it comes to the long essay that you have no choice but to do every month, you spend about 20, 30 hours. You need time for that. You need interest for that. You need to be selfish in the right ways for that. Those are the resources you need to get an A. Now you want to create a relationship with this person. How are you going to maintain it? It's not very difficult to fall in love. Look, ask any mom, ask any parent. Well, how difficult is it to have a kid? Not that difficult. You just need a penis and a vagina. And then you get pregnant. When the kid comes out, now comes the difficult part. Because love is not going to be sufficient. You need money. You need a companion who's mature. You need to understand the social structure of Oakland. If you want to send your kids to a public school, private school, if you want to continue to live in Oakland, if you're going to continue to smoke, you need resources. At the age of 18, you ain't got none. And neither does he. There is nothing wrong with romanticism. Go into it, full force, knock yourself out. As long as you know it's not going to last. If you know that, then you won't need therapy. You won't need drugs. You're not going to be homeless. You're not going to be scarred for life. There's nothing wrong with falling in love, just don't fall in love in a stupid way. Now, a 19-year-old's intellect, at best, he's probably a dim-witted. He has 1/8 of an intelligence. I'm not saying that, he's a bad guy or you lack the intelligence to be with this person. It's just good to know that, when you hang out with young people, they're just young. They lack experience. Allahu Akbar. Yes. Oh, well, that's really good. Because, well, where does he live? Oh, that's great. Does he come often? Excellent. Do you talk to him on the phone often? Can you lessen that to once a day for 10 minutes? Look, when you spend time with people, it's like food. Have you ever had Zachary's pizza?
No.
Jesus Christ. See, this is what happens when you're young. Now, let me tell you what usually happens. You begin to, you go out with your friends and they say, have you ever had Zachary's? You say, no. They take you to Zachary's. Your taste buds, when it comes to Zachary's, they're virgins. They've never experienced Zachary's. Okay? And then you get a taste of it and you say, oh my God, I'm in the Garden of Eden. And then you leave, but there is something that has engraved itself inside you. The experience of Zachary's deep dish spinach mushroom pesto pizza. Okay? And for some strange reason, as you're walking, all of a sudden you look at your wife or your kids, and you say, you want to do Zachary's? Yeah. And the more you talk about Zachary's pizza and wanting to have Zachary's pizza, like a nice dog, you begin to salivate more. And then you go in, you wait to be seated. And then this nice little person comes your way, can I help you? Yeah, Zachary's, deep dish spinach, mushroom pesto, and a Caesar salad. How long will it take? About 40 minutes. Okay. And all the while you're talking with your companion deep in the back, you're just thinking about Zachary's. As long as the pizza is not next to you and you're not eating it, what you have are dreams, hopes, fantasies, imaginations. It's going to taste so good. I'm going to be so happy. Why do you think people get married? Imagination. Why do you think people have children? Imagination. And you know where imagination lives? Way up there. It hasn't come down here. Because anything that comes down here and you touch it, it turns into dust. And then comes the pizza. And man, you're excited. And he or she puts a slice on your plate. Tastes really good. But greed is an interesting thing. You have greed because you've experienced something. And whatever it is that you've experienced has given you pleasure. It's positive. So you go for the second slice. You're eating a little slower. You're a little full now. And then you will yourself to eat this last piece. And then you look at the table this large pizza that you got, you only had 2 slices, and you have 20 slices left. And you say, Olivia, you spent $50. You should have just gotten a small one. What's wrong with you? And you want to eat another slice, and you say, I'm going to puke. One of the nice things about this person being in New York is that he will never puke, because he's not close by. And even if on the phone you have disagreements and you hang up the phone, you don't have to see his face to become more angry. You fantasize, imagine, how can I make this thing work? Then you have another 2-3 hours of conversation. And because he's not close by, you're going to hang up the phone after 3 hours saying, he thinks so well about things. I love him even more. Maybe we should have disagreements more often. Ask any one of us. As long as you're not roommates and you see the person once in a while, it's great. You have a saint on your hand. He spends money on you, gives you his time, do this, does that. And the more you get to know him, the less you begin to like him. And then you begin to be disgusted by him. And then you begin to be disgusted by yourself for wanting to be with him. And then you hate yourself. And then you do therapy. I mean, not all things end up that way, but most things do. Like 99.9%. And let me also add that these questions, you should reserve them for Dr. Phil. He takes calls now. But go ahead.
I disagree with that all love has to end.
Say again?
I disagree that all love has to end in a negative way. Because why would you get married? My parents have been married over.
Okay.
They still make it.
I'm sorry?
They still make it, but they don't.
They do. First of all, your parents are old school. They come from a different generation. In that particular generation, divorce was a big no. The element of shame and guilt had very powerful presence in society. 10 years ago, I would walk to class and would ask, how many of you watch porn? No hand will go up. How many of you smoke? No hand will ever go up. Why? Because people are embarrassed, are ashamed to raise their hand for such silly things. Now, it's a source of pride. If you say, I don't smoke, you say, man, look, there's something wrong with me. I gotta smoke. So time plays tricks on people, and on language, and on definitions. So you can't compare the marriage that your parents have to someone in their 20s having been married. It doesn't work. Apples and oranges. Second, you have no idea how your parents have suffered to keep their marriage going for 50 years. It's an enormously difficult task. It really, really is. I mean, people these days can't even make it to 2 years, 10 years, 5 years, 50 years. It's dinosaur. Beautiful. Now, here's the thing you need to also understand. I can look at you and fall in love with you. And then troubles will begin to appear. And then you will go your way, I will go my way. Your parents, my parents are very different. Okay? They don't want to be the first to divorce in the family. So they have disagreements, they fight, he sleeps on the sofa, she's on the bed. She wakes up in the morning, makes some eggs, throws the eggs at his face. He eats them and goes to work. And little by little, either this disagreement fades, or the husband goes and says, all right, I fucked up. Sorry. And the woman says, don't do it again. And this yo-yo syndrome will continue on and on and on and on until the man wises up a little. Says, okay, you know what? When she's on her cycle, I won't look at her. When she's been taking care of the kids and cooking and cleaning, I'll just take out the garbage. But it takes him about 10, 15 years to figure those things out. And after about 20 years, they'll get the hang of it. Now, it doesn't mean that accidents don't happen, such as you go out there to Safeway, you want to buy some potatoes, and all of a sudden you find yourself in Ludos. You find yourself completely enamored, attracted to someone. Those things do happen. And if you have a good amount of mindfulness about you, you kind of just walk the other direction. Okay. And the other aspect is when you spend too much time with someone, they begin to live inside you. They begin to occupy more space inside you. You begin to be like them, talk like them. It doesn't happen all the time, but most often. If you are my blood, I will tell you the following. Stay in school. Finish it up. ASAP. Don't take 12 units. That's for losers. Take 18, 21 units every semester. Get it done. Get out. Go to a good school. Because the more power you have in life, when you knock on any door, that door will open. You can't go into life being weak and poor. Are you kidding? You'll get demolished. Anyone else getting upset? Yeah.
How do you accept loss?
If I was to die right now, like have a stroke and die because you've pissed me off and my heart can't take it, so I drop dead. Well, that's a loss for you. What are you going to do? Pay for my burial? There's a good chance you won't even give a shit. You'll probably take out the schedule and say to yourself, is there another person who's teaching this class? You have lost someone, but there is no grief in it. And there is no grief in it because you and I don't have a relationship. And because you don't have a relationship, you're not attached. We are not emotionally connected, man. So when you talk about loss, the first thing you need to ask is this. Did you like the other person? If the answer is yes, sadness is going to come your way. Why? Well, when you like someone, it means that intellectually, imaginatively, physically, you've spent time with them. Andrew. Forget Andrew. Abi, please. She was in my class 30 years ago. She has a PhD, 2 husbands. Well, just one. Sorry, I didn't mean to rat you out. 2 kids. Why is she here? We spent time together. She brings her kids here. So when you spend time with someone, it means you care, you're interested. And little by little, that person begins to have bigger and bigger space inside you. And the more space they occupy inside you, the more you're attached to them. They become your sun, the stars, your air that you breathe. When they're there no more, now you suffer a loss that comes with a good amount of sadness that turns into sorrow that becomes a grieving process. Now you begin to ask a lot of questions. When I have a stroke and die in front of you, you say, oh, well, what the hell happened? You still ask why, but it's a very superficial question. You don't really care. If on the other hand, you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, and you've been together for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and you have all these plans, and you've made all these narratives, should they die, Then you say, why? But you don't ask why from your parents, you ask why from God. Why he's so unjust. Now you're pissed. You're angry. If I die, you will be angry because, well, shit, you need this class. Who's going to teach it? What's your grade? But if someone very close to you dies, your entire life has been turned upside down. What then? Now, loss, like anything else in life, has its own timetable. She may go through a breakup, that's a loss. It may take her 2 weeks to recover. You and your recovery may take 2 years, no one knows. Now, one of the problems with the American culture, it's what we call a how-to culture. It's an IKEA culture. You want a table? Go take a look. Then go to the basement, aisle 25, section 220, A, grab the box, go on, put it together. There you have it. What you have here is this. Oh, I broke up. I'm grieving. I'm sad. How do I fix it? Well, you go to Barnes & Nobles, go to self-help, buy a book from Dr. Phil, read a couple of pages. The assumption is like IKEA. In about 2 hours, you'll be fixed. That's not going to happen. When you live in a culture such as this, you give people the illusion that recovery is easy. And it's not. When you lose something, it's kind of like a wrestling match. And what happens in loss is you lose more than a companion. You lose power. You lose future. You lose perspective. And when you lose those things, what you suffer from is irritation, disturbance, confusion, and then anger. And then it is because you're angry and confused that you're trying to find a way out, but you won't find it. Then you get depressed. Well, your mom will knock on the door, honey, what can I do for you? Can I bring you a glass of milk? You want to go hang out with your friends? Why don't I go and get some like wheat for you? Right? They will do whatever they can, but you're in a place where you're not reachable. No one can reach you. And then there you have to suffer all by yourself. And you begin to ask some very, very difficult questions. Because one of the things that grief will bring with itself is complete isolation, aloneness. No one can reach you. And no one can reach you. It's not because you lack the intelligence. There are too many emotions inside you, and they're intense, like a volcano. If you've seen the movie Moana, the volcano erupting, right? Things are erupting. And just in case your mom pushes you a little, you're going to scream at her. We don't want to, but she pushes you. So, let's go to our friends. What time is it? 54? And we have another 20 minutes. Sucks. Okay, anyone else before we... It's not about boxing, is it?
No, it's not fun really. With your like experience and all that, what do you try to get out of literature you read these days?
What do I what?
What do you try to get out of like reading literature these days?
Oh, I don't read anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to wear glasses and then I get headache. And there are not very many good books out there, so...
Fair.
Yeah.
I got floaters, so it makes it hard to read.
Yeah. Andrew? So, we have a tendency of, well, let me kind of go back and try to See if I can tell you the beginning of how all of this stuff happens. I'm not very good at this stuff, but nevertheless. Children are interesting. It is true from the age 0 to about 4, 5, or 6, they just goof around, do whatever. They don't really think much about anything. They just want to have fun. But in the course of, say, from the age 3 or 4 after, is that even earlier, the potty training, parents will begin to make demands. Eat with a goddamn spoon. Don't eat so messy. You peed in the bed again. Walk straight. I couldn't hear you. Talk louder. And the kid has no choice but to try. In other words, what's happening is that you're putting a good amount of stress on the kids. And if you want these kids to be comfortable, you have to give them space where they can freely express what it is that they want. But a child's life is very, very simple. When you get to be a little older, you realize you have emotions you don't understand. Your parents make demands of you that you don't really understand. You come to class and you say, well, damn, I'm an American, I'm an individual. My instructor says don't play with the phone. Put your goddamn cell phone away. You begin to walk into society, and society is tough because you're walking into an environment where there are forces you can't see. But should you not obey those forces, you will fail. And you realize that from the moment you wake up to the time you put your head on the pillow to sleep, you have no choice but to conform, to be under an avalanche of troubles given to you by your own emotions, your own past, also demands that society makes. You need to pay rent. That's tough. You have to overcome loneliness. Tough. You feel as if you have to call your mom and just say hi even though you don't want to. That's tough. You have to come to the stupid class and listen to someone rambling on for 2 hours. That's tough. And that's how days go by. Now, what happens when all the stress is upon you? Well, you have emotions on the inside. Somehow you need to vent them. We have no choice but to find a confessional booth. And you don't have to be religious. Some people are lonely. They use porn. That's a confession. Some people just have a sad life and they can't face it. They smoke. That's a sad life. It's another form of confession. You're scared about your future. You take this class. That's a confession. Now, some confessions can be expressed. Like, let's say you walk into this class and I piss you off, but because you and I have a relationship, you raise your hand and you say, hey, you said ABC and I don't like it. Can you give me some clarity? Okay? And then I can do a couple of things. I can either give you more stress that builds up more emotions inside you. And one of the things about emotions that are built inside is that they're very much like food that you eat. If you don't poop them out, you'll be constipated. And then you can't function your day-to-day activities. Emotions are very much the same. You have a father problem, you have a girlfriend problem, you have a kid problem. Well, somehow you have to get it out. You know, it's like when you have a fight with your companion, she slams the door shut. It's like your entire day is gone. You go to the bathroom, you think about her. You go to work, you think about her. You have an exam, you call your instructor and say, I'm sick. There is no place you can go to find some calm and solace. Doesn't work. Okay. So, since life is in the business of crushing, destroying every hope and dream that you've ever had in your life, That's the business of life. The question then is, do you have the tools or the resources to vent? Can you be a Picasso? Hugh Hefner. You guys all know who Hugh Hefner is, right? This is a guy who loves being around beauty. Things that are beautiful. But he has the resource. He doesn't look at porn. He doesn't look at pictures in magazines. He buys people. He has them live in his house. So every morning when he awakes, beauty here, beauty here, beauty here, beauty here. He's in the Garden of Eden. And the less he's able to look himself in the mirror, the happier he is. Now, if you're able to gain some insights into the sort of a person that you are, the sort of things that you enjoy, then you say, okay, since there is no place I can go in life where there is no stress, no pressure, no demands, let me pick and choose the sort of stress I want in my life. You can be lonely and be stressful, or have a companion and be stressful. If you're lonely and stressful, that loneliness will create stress about 15 hours a day. If you have a companion, you're stressed about 2 hours a day. You're going to be stressed nevertheless. The question is for how long? How many hours do you want the stress to be? You need to make money. You can either do it at Home Depot or sacrifice a couple years of your life, stay in school, do a major, do a minor, you find yourself a nice little job, now you make about 150, 200,000 a year. Now, the more insights you have, the more mindful you are, the more reflective you are. You will house your physical body in physical spaces that will give you the stress that you desire. Let me give you an example. I got to campus this morning around about 5:30. I go to my office. The lights are a little too bright, so I shut them off. I make myself a nice little coffee. I put some piano in the background. It makes for a very kind of reflective, i.e. sad mood. Then I read the news a little bit. It doesn't really bother me. Doesn't matter what has happened. Then I sit and write. And I don't write happy stuff. I like the stress of the physical space. It helps me think. And it inspires me to write. And then when I'm done, I go home and I say, fuck it. I'm done for the day. I've done with the serious business of life, which is sitting, thinking, and writing. When I go home, I just take it easy. If my wife wants to write me, fine. If my kids want to harass me, fine. I don't really mind. So the task is, don't listen to all these new age gurus that you can live a pain-free, stress-free life. It won't work. People have been around for a long, long, long time. This is a culture that is very, very deceptive. You just need to be powerful enough to pick and choose the sort of pain and stress you want in your life. And to be honest, I've forgotten your question. So I'll start rambling on. Anyone else? You have like 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes? Yeah. Richard, sorry.
For people who are struggling with issues like not just the loss, but I guess just depression, kind of anxiety, anhedonia, things of that nature, how do you think that, I guess, philosophy could help delve into philosophy? Or do you have any thoughts on how to pull yourself out of that kind of depth?
Okay. let's just say, and forgive me, I know it's not about you, but let me just do it this way. One of the things that I suppose I should say, and forgive me if I'm sidetracking a little. For those of you in this class who have ever read the book of Job, which is in the Old Testament, one of the nice things about the book of Job is the following. The only way Job can understand anything that's worth understanding is when he himself is touched. Not when his cow dies, not when his kids die, when he himself is going to die. Only then does he begin to ask difficult questions. So just in case sometimes when I make things personal, okay, if it's abstract, if it's out there, well, it can make for a very interesting conversation. But it doesn't make you reflect the way I would want you to reflect. So just in case I ask and you feel that the questions are a little imposing, a little personal, intrusive, don't mind it. Because it's not about you. Okay? Let's say you have anxiety. Let me ask you this mathematical question and tell me if you feel anxious in responding to it. 2 plus 2.
I don't know why. That's the weird part about it, is the anxiety about it. It's very pervasive.
2 plus 2.
4.
1 plus 1.
2.
925 times 5,055.
It's gonna take a bit.
No, here's the thing. Let's just say you've had anxiety all through these questions. But 1 plus 1, because you know the answer, the degree to which you're anxious is maybe 2%. Why? You have power. You know. You're in charge. Yes, other people are listening. Yes, you may have a bad tone of voice. Yes, you may be reserved enough, shy enough not to want people to look at you, but they are. That creates the anxiety, but not the question itself. And maybe because you and I are not in a relationship, you feel as if, well, I am a bit intimidating, right? But when it comes to the question 1 plus 1, there is no anxiousness there. So whenever anxiety comes about, the first thing you need to understand is you put yourself in a situation where you have zero power, or not as much power. It's like you like someone, you're fearful of them seeing through this veil you've created, okay? You go to say hello, but your voice begins to shake. And then your arm begins to twitch a little. No anxiety. So that's the first thing. The less power you have, the more anxious you're going to be. Knowing that about yourself, the first clue is this. Since you're a novice, be smart, be political. Always place your physical body in familiar environments where you have power. If your friends make you nervous, fuck them. Stick with your family. And when you've gained enough power, spending power, then be around environments that kind of push you a little bit. You won't be as anxious. So that's the first thing. You know, it's kind of like parents are really good at this. And since you have a child, you know, when they're laying on their back because they're only 6 months old, and all of a sudden, miraculously, magically, your daughter says, "Dad, I want to sprint." Shut the fuck up. Sprint. Just lay on your back. Be quiet. Then they sit on their back. Then they stand up. Then they walk. Then they run. And you're always careful. Don't ever try to overcome anything too fast because it won't work. You will fall. And when you fall, you'll get more depressed, more anxious. Your self-confidence just goes out the window. So the first thing that any one of us need to understand is, look, when you're not good, proficient at something, just take it easy, take it slow. If you've never written a good essay, start with a goddamn line. Add a couple more lines, now you have a paragraph. Then you have a sheet of essay. Then you have 5 sheets of essays. Okay? Now, depression is a different story. Do we have time? Because this will take some time. You got 5 minutes. So let me put this in a context that works for me. I don't know if it works for you. I'm 18, and all 18-year-olds have this gift, and it's free. Imagination, hopes, and dreams. That's if, during their formative years, 0 to about 7 or 8, they haven't been messed up by their parents or society. Okay? Or if they have come from a culture that gives them proper stories. Now, for those of you in this class who may not know, there are lots of awful things that are happening in Palestine. But what you need to know about the Middle East is that they have very, very powerful religious, political, sociological, and philosophical stories. Those kids will be messed up, but what they have in their software is very strong philosophies of life. And they're very community-oriented. They're never going to feel alone. They're always going to feel supported. And they're all going to be political and social activists. They will never need therapy unless they come here. And they're sold all these ridiculous stories. Okay? Now, let's say I'm 18, like Olivia. I look at someone, I fall in love with them. Well, I'm 18. The world can't touch me. That's what my imagination tells me. Then I go into life. And little by little, I realize things are complicated. I try to work things out, but I don't have the sufficient tools. My parents tell me do A, B, C, D, but they don't really make sense. I'm not there yet. And my wife keeps telling me, it won't work. My kids tell me, it won't work. I try. But because I don't have the proper tools, and because, like we talked about, the grass can't grow by pulling it, every time I try, I fail. And my self-confidence dips just a bit more. I don't get depressed immediately. I get irritated. I get frustrated. I get confused. I become angry. And these are all like, the irritation takes about a month. The confusion takes about 2 years. Okay? The anger takes about 10 years. In anger, I begin to bully people. Once in a while, I catch myself. Now I hate the person I've become. Now you have hate for about another 5 years. Then you try to fix this whole goddamn thing, but it's not fixable. And all of a sudden, one morning you wake up and you say, I'm not going to do anything. After 5 or 6 or 10 years of trying, you've been beaten down and you've been beaten out. There is no will left in you. Now you're depressed. Okay. So whenever someone says, I'm depressed, there is a history to it. Okay. It just doesn't happen overnight, unless you have just like bad brain chemistry. That you can take care of that with medication. Okay. Now, people in this culture who are somewhat depressed, there's a good chance they've done a lot of different things to overcome it. Reading books, getting into fights, pornography, drugs, all sorts of things. And there comes a point where they say, none of this stuff is going to work. I want to do something different. I just don't know what. Now, because depression is a loss of meaning, loss of identity, loss of basically life, what you have is a human being who's have been hollowed from within, empty. Now, if you have some maturity to you, you will fake it. You will fake it with your parents, with your companion, with your kids. But there are moments they catch you. And there are moments, many moments you catch yourself. And it's exhausting. Okay? And because depression is a loss of sorts, comes with it grief. That you're always sad. And you will try to cheer up for your family, and you can do it for 5-10 minutes. And there's a good chance, because this is deep-rooted now, you hate being around people. And you hate for one reason. there is a good amount of stress, pressure inside you. No one sees it. And no one is intimate enough to share the stuff with. So being around other people makes you even feel more alone, which is devastating. Let me stop there. It'd be nice to put stuff on the board, but listen, for those of you who are interested in some of the things we've talked about, I have some audio lectures. They're not mine, they're just from other people. Anthropology, psychology, philosophy, history, politics. If you're interested, send me an email. I will give you my cell number. You can email me or text me on this app you can download on your cell called Telegram, and I will send you all these lectures or talks, audiobooks. And then once in a while, if you're in the business of walking around, you can kind of just listen and walk at the same time. I mean, it's free. Okay. Well, have a nice weekend. Take care. Stay well. I will see you on Tuesday.